All right, guys. So grab a juice box or whatever it is you drink. This might be a little bit of a longer video because I want to talk about this concept called follow your heart with your synthesizer. And if you love synths as much as I do, this will probably make sense and hopefully hit home if not. So the whole concept was we were kind of geeking out as we always do in my Discord, and different synthesizers pop up in conversation, different sound design techniques, that sort of thing. And it kind of went to the point I was kind of thinking why I fell so much in love with Avenger 2 and why it's kind of been my synth that I gravitate towards for really any type of synthesis. It's kind of just been the main one when I think of a sound in my head. I'm like, I instantly open up Avenger, and that might be kind of a crazy concept, but I kind of want to break that down a little bit and kind of maybe explain how that came to be. So let's rewind back to the time where the first edition of Serum came out, and it was all the rage, and rightfully so. So before that, I was mainly with Citrus, Harmor, most of the FL synthesizers at that time. And those are great. I loved them. You know, they're strange. They were different from the normal synthesizers out there, but I really liked that. I felt comfortable in them. And Serum comes out, and I bought it, and took a little bit of time to get to know it. As you do with any piece of software. And I thought it was really cool. It was one of the synthesizers where I was like, I love the sounds that are coming out of this. The patches I'm making at first weren't the greatest, obviously, but after you get to know it and practice, I'm like, this is pretty cool. And I liked all the features it had. The interface was great. How you see the modulation move, like all the cool stuff about Serum, absolutely. But there was a small little thing in the back of my head, maybe like a little voice that's like, why aren't I having that much fun with this? It felt more, to me at least, like a tool, like a great tool, but there's some disconnect I felt with that one for some reason. I still don't really understand what it was, and I fought that feeling for a long time. I still kept using Serum and making patches with it, and even made some videos with it way back when. Now, I don't really know why that feeling was there, but fast forward to the time where Pigments gets released, and this thing comes out. I look at it, I'm like, oh, this has a lot of the stuff that Serum has. I'm like, why should I get this? Maybe I'll get it because it looks really cool and it sounds cool. And I bought it and I started using it, and I fell in love with it like instantly. It had all the stuff I wanted at the time, and the way you can mix different types of engines and the constant free updates were really cool. I still remember to this day always wanting to have the post send effects, and then they added that at some point. I'm like, God bless you, Arturo. You actually put that in the update, which is really, really cool. I really wanted that feature in there. So that was one of the synthesizers where I felt that I had fun, and I also liked the patches that I was making with it. So that was kind of a cool thing, and it was fast too. So that was a really nice part about it as well. And plus, I dabble in the other synthesizers, and you know how that goes. And then a lot of people would comment and recommend, like, hey, maybe you should try it Avenger 2. And I'm like, okay, at some point, for sure, for sure. And then once I finally have Avenger on my screen, it takes a little bit of time, as with any software, to just kind of learn where things are. As you can see, Cubase in the background, I'm still learning in, maybe about a little bit of a month and a half into it, I think. I can't remember exactly, but there's this kind of concept where if you switch to a new software or something, you kind of have to get through that hurdle of not knowing where everything is, not knowing how everything works, until you can actually judge it on a level playing field. So I gave myself that time with Avenger and just learning everything and where things were at. And it kind of stole the show for me because after I got past the learning curve, which really, to be honest with you, it wasn't that bad at all. I felt like the layout was just intuitive. So it's kind of just like remembering, I suppose, where things are and how the whole thing works. So one of the first things that kind of stuck out to me was the effects, right? So how many effects you could have. I'd look at this interface and say, okay, well, we have FX Bank 1. We have all these slots where we can put all these type of effects in here. These are all really cool. There's a lot to go through. And I was like, this is amazing. I can make this whole stack, and then I could save this stack and recall it on another preset, which is really cool. And then you start seeing the pluses. You're like, okay, so I can hit a plus. Okay, FX2, that's crazy. FX3, okay, that's even crazier. FX4, mind's blown at that point. And then not only that, but we have then the send effects, then we have the master effects, and then these different effects banks, we can click down here and decide where we want these routed to. I'm like, good God, this is kind of crazy. Then we click here and there's all these rack presets. And like I said, you can even save your own, which is really cool. I like the concept of the modular type of presets where I can build a rack and I can save that. Or for example, I can maybe go into like a mod envelope and I can save this, or I can go through presets here and I can pick something that's already made that might work for my patch that I'm trying to do. I like that concept. So that was kind of cool. I'm like, we have all these effects and we can do a lot with them. And then we look at the oscillators. I'm like, okay, well, we have oscillator one. We can keep adding these all the way up to 8. And to be honest with you, I rarely use all 8. I've maybe done that a handful of times because I'd never feel like I need that many. But sometimes when you do, it's super convenient. I'd mainly use maybe 4 or 5 at the most. And sometimes I only get away with 1 or 2. Because if we go in the first oscillator, we have this voicing tab and we have all these extra voices. We have a sub here for each oscillator. That kind of blew my mind. And then we have the unison per the oscillator, which is cool as well. And I'm like, okay, then we have the noise. We could do stuff with FM down here. And we can change so many things just with one oscillator in here. We have syncing here. And at this point, like, this is crazy. We have the level that goes down like this here. We can right click and it's going to change the panning. So that's kind of a cool design concept in itself. And then later on, we have more noises here. We have organic noises. We have so many things to pick from. And again, this is just in one oscillator. Then we have the quantized module. I'm like, good Lord. It's just everything, every sound that I try to think in my head to try to make, it's just, that's why I gravitate toward Avenger. It has all the tools and the things that I need to make whatever it is I need to. So that was kind of awesome. Now, I was like, okay, well, we have all these oscillators. What kind of types do they have, right? So then you click up here, you have virtual analog, you have a lot of shapes. Even with the packs that you get all these different shapes with them. We can do some freeform stuff. You can draw your own stuff if you want to. We have wavetables, we can resample stuff. We have spectral samples, granular, which is a big one, especially for pads. That's a really cool way to go through it. Spectral, which is amazing. Multi-loops, things like that. So I'm like, okay, we got the oscillator bases well covered. And then we go and say, okay, we have our amp here and we can keep adding all these amps here. We have 5 different amps. So maybe we want different ADSRs on different oscillators, depending on how we want to send them to. I'm like, well, how does that work? And we go to our oscillator and we say, okay, well, maybe oscillator 1 should go to amp 1, which it is. Oscillator 2, we maybe want to send this to amp 2. And it's that quick just to route things here. The routing is just in one spot, and that's kind of where we just branch off and send signal to different places and in different orders too. You can move things around. So that's amazing. And then for each of these oscillators, we can go down to our pitch and we can have different pitch on these, which is kind of cool. So maybe oscillator 2, if we don't want it to go to pitch 1, we can say go to pitch 2, and then we can change the pitch curve and all the settings down here for that. That was definitely a plus. And then this feature here, the spread. So like there's some synthesizers, I believe Hive has that as well, and some of them you have to manually set it up. Some of them you can't even do it at all. But I like the concept where if we go to initialize, and for example, if we turn this all the way to the right, we have alternate 100%, and we play some notes here. The notes basically go back and forth between our stereo field, and that's nice to really build some width for certain types of patches. And we don't have to go all the way to 100, even something like 25 or 30 can be kind of cool. So that was a cool concept. Then we turn to the left and it's randomized for the stereo field. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then there's like pan tracking, which is awesome as well. So the amp kind of stole my heart in that sense. And then we look at the filters. Okay, well, 1 filter, 2 filter, 3, 4, 5. I'm like, good Lord. And then we have a master filter on top of that. How many types of filters we have? Quite a lot here as well. So I'm like, okay, well, we got the filter bases covered. We have a distortion shaper module, which is amazing. So it kind of came to this point where I was like, well, I think this has all the stuff that I need to as well. And then I remember looking at it for the first time. I was like, okay, drums. What? We have a drum synth? Like, what is this? Drums? And then you look in here and there's so many different drum kits and they all sound great for the genres that they're in. And it's easy to use. We have the drum sequencer, like we can load up some type of drum here. And then we have a drum sequencer right in there as well. And turn on our sequencer over here. And almost every single pack here has so many different drum kits. So if you're like, I want to make a trance song or some EDM song, like you can go to those packs and those drums are specifically tailored for that kind of genre. So EDM4, we can go in this folder and maybe something. I always like the Chase kit. This one always sounded pretty cool to me. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. I have a synthesizer and a drum machine built into one. That was kind of a wild concept, but it's really cool how it's set up. And then we say, how do we actually mix this and go along with that? So we have our mixer, and then we have our mixer for the oscillators in general, drums, master. And then we have the drum mixer itself. I'm like, this is really cool. And then we have a mixer for the amps, which is kind of a spot you can just mix everything at once instead of having to hop through pages, which is very useful in that sense. Like, this is kind of awesome. And then I thought, okay, well, what else can we have to offer? We have step sequencing if you want to do that. We can keep adding these over and over and over and over all the way up to 8, which I've actually never used eight step sequencers, but it's actually pretty cool that you can. And then the ARP, which as you've seen from the previous videos I've done, this thing is in depth, especially with randomizing and things like that. And we can keep adding more ARPs, so we can have literally 8 different oscillators, each going to their own separate ARP, doing their own pattern. So we can have oscillator 1 be a bass, and it's going to ARP 1, and that's doing its own bass thing. Then we can have oscillator 2 doing some type of lead, doing that, and so on and so forth. You just keep kind of building on top of that. I'm like, okay, awesome. What about modulation? What kind of cool stuff do we have? So we have our LFO. We have all these different types of shapes, the speeds. I like how we can change the unipolar, bipolar right there. We have a delay. So if we want to press a note, have a little bit of time to wait, and then our LFO starts, boom, we got that. We can fade it in so it's not so abrupt as well. It changes the phase of that, which is all standard stuff, but it's great to have that in there. We can have custom LFO shapes as well, which is really nice. And then I'm like, okay, well, what about like MSEGs or, our user defined shapes? And we go to our mod envelope and we can just draw to our heart's content. And we also have presets in here. If we make something, we can click this, we can save that. We can go to here, pick something that we like, some crazy shape. So at this point, I'm like, oh my God, this is kind of nuts. We have all these things. And what if I want more mod envelopes? We can just keep stacking this again, all the way up to 8, which I rarely use 8 mod envelopes in any patch. So it's cool to have that there. And I'm like, okay, this is awesome. What else can we do? How do we go about macros and things like that? And we have 3 buttons here and 2 here, but if we want more, we can add a page, and then we have this macro, second macro page, third macro page, fourth macro page. So we get to this point where we have 12 here and 8 buttons. And I was like, buttons? That's kind of interesting because you can just toggle things on and off. If you have a drum kit and you want to make that a button, so if you're playing this patch, you can just click the button on and off and turn the drums on and off if you want to, or bass, or really whatever you want to do. So long story short, it kind of came to this point where it had everything I needed and it sounded good. And the most important part, at least for me, is I enjoyed working with it. Like there was never times where I'm like struggling to get this to work, or why is that not working, or this, that. Like it worked and it sounded good and I had fun. It was a pleasurable experience and I just liked what it had. And then also the content that comes with it is just mind blowing. So like before we wrap this up, some of these ones in here, like these cinematic loops, are just insane. One of my favorite ones, I think this is Epic Climax. So bear with me here. This one's kind of wild. So that's just how it goes. Right now we have voices. We have different stuff in here. We can increase our voices. I guess just bring all of these up here like that and kind of see what that sounds like now. Maybe this one here. So yeah, the sound design is insane. And like I say before, it's nice to go through some of these preset packs or expansions and kind of just learn how these sounds are put together. There's such a wealth of knowledge to get through that. And I guess that's the whole lengthy description of why you should just follow your heart, because at this time I had so much fun with Avenger, and it was just, there was a lot of times where I wasn't even making patches. I was just like playing around with it, and hours would go by. I'm like, oh my God, I don't even remember the last time that this happened to me, where I was just sitting in front of a synthesizer and just having so much fun with it, not focused on a specific goal, but you get to that goal inadvertently, if that makes any sort of sense. But yeah, long story short, it had everything I needed it to have. It was fun to use and it sounded great. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I just got to follow my heart. This thing is amazing, and it has all the stuff I needed to do. Like, I don't feel, unless I'm going for a very specific synth sound, if I'm like, I absolutely need an OBX recreation, or this sound is exactly what I need from Diva or something like that, then sure, I'll incorporate that. But like 99%, anything else can be done here. So yeah, that's the long version of that. If you stuck around, maybe put a weird emoji in the bottom to kind of show a badge of honor there. So yeah, yeah. What is your favorite? I guess your main synth. I think we all have one at that point. But yeah, thank you for listening to the talk. It was kind of lengthy, but hey, it was worth it.